Hello everyone, my name is Evie Young. I'm part of the client services team here at Emsi, and welcome to the webinar. The plan for today is to go through a little bit of information around Emsi, around our data, and then we're going to jump straight into Analyst and just have a view of some of the most used reports. And again, I'll just show you how we've set up Analyst. If you have any questions, we do have a questions box in the GoToWebinar panel at the side. So we'll go through any questions or any examples that anybody wants to go through at the end. So to start with, I'm going to go through a very quick PowerPoint presentation. I will be quick, I promise. And then we're going to jump straight into the tool. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of information around Emsi, a little bit of information around our data, and then a few things that are really important to remember when you're using Analyst. Emsi, we are Economic Modelling Specialists International. We are economists from Moscow in Idaho in the US, but we have a base in Basingstoke in the UK. We're doing economic impact studies in the States. So we look at one organization and measure their impact on their local economy and their regional economy. And from there, we've expanded, again, with different data sets and different tools to help many different types of people be able to use this data productively. Services team, you will have a dedicated account manager and dedicated technical support. We have self-help resources, we've got webinars that you're on at the moment, we've got blogs, we've got newsletters, we've got loads of different ways, hopefully, to be able to help you guys, but never be afraid to get in contact, because that is exactly why we're here. Now, I'm going to go through a few things about our data very quickly. Again, starting off with our data sources. So we have some past you on the screen right now that are mainly updated annually. Now, as these data sources whiz past you on the screen, we do have full information about all our data sources, how all the data is pulled together on our knowledge base, which I'll show you in a little while. But again, I just wanted to pull through some of our data sources for your reference. So all of these data sources look at historic employment, and then we're able to project forward. Now, our data sources range from things like the census that are once in a blue moon every 10 years, to things like our job posting analytics, which are updated monthly. Now, we're just about to update our data, our core data sets. So just watch out in a couple of weeks, you'll see that all of our data will refresh, and you'll still have access to the current data set you have at the moment as well. So we start with industry data and build out from there, looking at occupations and earnings and unemployment figures and 101 different things, which again, I'll show you in Analyst. We start with our 9 main government sources, but we also factor in other data sets around ONET, so looking at skills, job posting analytics, Equifax data, unemployment. It's not all government data sets. And then we fix the suppressions. So all the government data that we look at are publicly available data sets, but they are suppressed for privacy and confidentially, especially at a low level. So if you're looking at a local authority, or if you're looking at really detailed occupation or industry information. We also work out our own projections. So we project from the bottom up. So again, looking at our really detailed information and expanding outwards. And we look at 3, 5, and 8 years into the future based on historic trends. So this is a bit of an example as to how our projections will look. As you can see, our historic data is a little bit higgledy-piggledy, but our projected data will always be in a smooth line or a curve. At the moment, you can look from 2003 up until 2024. But again, once we refresh our data in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to look a little bit further than that as well. Second point we're going to go through today is granularity. So the geographies can either be quite broad or be quite detailed, depending on what you want to have a look at. So if you want to have a look at national data for the whole country, you've got the ability to do that, or you can go right down to a local authority level. You also have the ability to build out local authorities. So if you're a particular college or a particular organisation, you can pop your postcode in and have a look at a 10-mile radius or a 20-mile radius around that address. Again, I'll show you how to do this in Analyst, so bear with me. We can also put in regions for you as well. So if you're wanting to have a look at the local enterprise partnership regions, or if you're wanting to look at the OLAS proposed prison lot regions, again, we can pop these into your Analyst account, so feel free to just ask. Now, I have a very quick example here as to why local data is so important. So if we looked at call and contact centre occupations in the East Midlands, you can see there's been a 6% decrease between 2009 and 2016. But if you go right down to a local authority level and look at Derby, you can see there's been a 307% increase, which is obviously massive. And if you're in Derby, it's incredibly important to understand how the local authority of Derby has an impact on the East Midlands if it is still in decline. Our very, very last point with this very quick PowerPoint presentation is just a couple of points to remember when using Analyst. Now, in the system, we've split off industries and occupations. So occupations are looking at a job, they're looking at people, and industries are looking at businesses. Now, that sounds fairly self-explanatory, but it's really important to remember when you're going into Analyst and you're looking for a specific report or a specific project, which one you're wanting to have a look at. Excuse me. Now, the example that I like to use is if we imagine a nurse in a hospital. Now, if you think of a nurse, you obviously do think of hospitals, but there's 101 different industries that they can work in around temporary employment or education, again, 101 different industries. And it's the same the other way around. It's not just going to be nurses that work in hospitals. There's going to be finance, there's going to be HR, chefs, drivers. Again, there's 101 different people, different occupations that are employed in a hospital. Now, it's really important to remember that, because there can be some occupations that you might exclude if you're not necessarily looking at the right industry or the right occupation. Now, in Analyst, using government SIC and SOC codes, that's standard industry classification codes and standard occupation classification codes. Don't worry, you won't have to remember this. And again, I'll show you in the system how this works. It looks a little bit complicated here, but trust me, it's not that hard to wrap your head around once we go through it. My very, very quick PowerPoint presentation, which I promised would be, and now we're going to jump very quickly into. Now, when you're logging into Analyst, this is what you should be seeing, hopefully. Oh, bear with me, sorry. So this is what you should be seeing when you log into Analyst. It might be slightly different. You might have access to slightly different reports down the side here, but you will have an occupations tab here. You will have an industries tab, and you will have a demographics tab. Job postings are an additional data set which you can get from us. So again, contact client services if you've got any questions. We are going to touch on this a little bit later on. And we also have the curriculum planner at the bottom. Again, this is an additional part of Analyst. That means you can upload ILR data or completions data to measure against the economy. Again, we'll touch on this a little bit later. Before we jump into the data though, it's worth mentioning that we have a knowledge base in the top right-hand corner. So if you click on this button, it'll take you through to knowledge base. It's on a separate website. As you can see, we've got a glossary, we've got tutorials, we've got videos, we've got how-to guides, and here we have a section all detailed information about our data sources, how it's put together. We do have a chat function at the bottom which works exactly like Facebook chat, just comes through to one of the members of the team. So again, feel free to get in contact. For anyone who has my number or my email address, again, feel free to just get in contact however you want. Now, if any of you haven't logged in a little while, you've noticed that we've actually refreshed this homepage to feature the My Reports feature. If you know that you're going to be using one report more than another, you can basically save it to your homepage so you don't have to click through the reports to have a look at. But again, feel free to have a play around with this feature. So my plan for today was to start in the Industries tab here. to go into the occupations tab, where we'll jump through to the job postings. Again, at the end, we'll touch through on curriculum planner. Now, the only report I wasn't going to have a look at was demographics. It's built into the industry data and the occupation data. It's fairly self-explanatory, so I wasn't going to go through it. But if anybody wants to have a look at it at the end, again, I'm more than welcome. So let's have a look at industries. So once I click this report, you'll see that it depends on how you want this data to be presented. Now, our most popular reports are at the top. So again, we'll probably be going through these ones in the system. But again, it's the idea for analysts is it should be really interactive and really easy for you to jump around from one report to another. If you have any questions, again, kind of jump into that data and hopefully answer those questions. Before we jump into the report, now, the economy overview is basically a historic regional overview report. Before we jump into this report, you've got to input a region. So if I just started typing, so if I start putting in Reading, it'll start to suggest a region. You can click on the function at the top. You can click on browse, and again, just through and have a bit of a play around with these local authorities, or you can use the radius address function. Now, Reading at the moment, I'm just going to pop in Reading. It's off of Google Maps. So this or area that you're looking at is in Google Maps, then you should be able to find it. I'm going to click on around Reading, which is basically pull out all of the local, again, a little bit of the region there, but it's automatically included that in. Now, not. Regions that you're looking at. I know personally it's a little bit easier for me to see the regions that I want to include in my particular selection. Here. Now, if I know that I'm going to use this, these local authorities, again, I'm wanting to save them in my account, I can just type in some random letters or name your group however you want and click on save. And you'll see at the bottom, it's automatically created my group. And this means it'll stay in my account until I decide to delete it or change it or edit it. And you can also share it amongst your organisation as well. So if you know there's going to be a few of you working on this region, you can change that around. Now you can access that through the groups at the end here. Time being, I'm just going to run. Now, before we look at this data that's about to load, you can see down the side here, we've got a couple of bits of data that you can edit. Now, we've got our time frame information, which means that we can look from 2003 up until 2024. In this report, we can only look up until 2016 because it's a historic overview report. As I said, we're about to update our data in maybe the next couple of weeks. So you'll see that 2017 will be added in there as well, because that's our last full year of data that we've got. You can also change the class of workers. So that's employees and proprietors. Now, proprietors are the self-employed who are PAYE or VAT registered as well. You can also reports as well, so pull them off in a PDF, Word or Excel just by clicking the export button at the top if you want to do the whole page. Or what you use to report. If I just click on this and I just click on this, there we go. You can see it's bounced into the bottom here, and it's basically just taken those two snippets of information to create a custom report. So if you do just want a little bit of information, you don't have to export the whole page. and then cut and paste it. And again, if you're wanting to go all the way through Analyst, you can just export one report at the end rather than on each particular page. Again, have a bit of a play around with that and get in contact if you've got any questions. This means that we can click into it and find it. And we also have the ability to jump around from one report to another in Analyst. So here we've got a little bit of information by industry, and the option to kind of click into other reports as well. And against another, I can just click on these X's to edit the regions that I can look at, and again add them in at the bottom as well. We have a full report that you can go into this in a lot more detail if you want to. But again, this is just a bit of a snippet overview. Business size, declining occupations, and the top 3 growing industries and declining industries. So we've got our jobs and our people at the top, and our industries, so our businesses at the bottom. Again, you can get full reports that go into this in a lot more detail to look at the top 10 or the top 50 occupations, but again, this is just a bit of a snippet overview. We have said it's kind of built into the report, so you don't necessarily always have to go to the demographics tab. Part of your contract and your subscription, you'll automatically get 5 reports, Equifax data. Now, Equifax data is a third-party data company who take their data from Companies House. So again, that's the business data. Now, they have an activity indicator as to how good they think their own data is. So again, feel free to have a bit of a play around with those kind of figures, those data, sorry, and get in touch if you have any questions. So now back to industries. Now that report was just looking at a particular region. It wasn't focusing on anything in particular, just the region, and kind of gave you a bit of snippet overview information about that particular region. But now we're going to start jumping into the industry data. So I'm going to start by looking at an industry table. And as you'll see, our region will actually follow us around until we'll change it. So again, you can change this at any time, but just to make life a little bit easier, it'll follow you around until you do. You can limit by industry. So again, if you know what particular industry you're wanting to have a look at, you can start typing and it'll make suggestions, or you can click on browse. Again, what that'll do is basically just provide you with a list that you can trawl through if you want to. Or we do have a groups function as well. Now, the groups mean that some industries that we've kind of grouped together around construction or education or hair and beauty, but we can add in particular industry groups if you are wanting them. The same works with the occupations, which again I'll show you in a little while, but if you're wanting the T level and the technical level education groups, again we can add those in, so just contact us if you do have questions. So now I clicked run on my report, and what I'm going to do is change my time frame to have a look at a bit of a projection. So I'm going to go up until 2021, and our data will automatically update if you do make any changes down the side. So again, if you edit the regions, if you edit the time frame or the class of worker, Analyst will automatically update. Now, as I said before, we classify the industries and the occupations using government codes. Industries are classified using SIC codes. SIC is I for industries, SOC is O for occupations. It's fairly easy to remember. But what I'm going to do now is just very quickly show you how these work and how they set out, because you're able to look at different hierarchies of industry, which is really level SIC codes, which are quite general categories. If we take, let's take C for manufacturing, you can see obviously there's quite a lot of jobs. So this includes absolutely everything that covers under manufacturing. So what we can do is break this down to 2-digit level, 2-digit SIC level. And as you can see, this has broken it down to the different types of manufacturing. So whether that's food, drink, tobacco, textiles, and we can break this down again into different types of food manufacturing. So meat, fish, fruit, veg, dairy, etc. And we can break this down again to 4-digit zip code, which is the most detailed information, to the processing, preserving of meat or poultry. Again, so it's just breaking down that information further and further and further. So it purely depends on the information that you want to see, whether you want to have a look at quite a high level, so a 1-digit level being quite high level, or 4-digit being the most detailed information that we have. Again, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to just get in touch. And again, I'm happy to go through how that works. The same works for all of these categories, by the way, but what we can do is we can select 1 to 4 digits. So if we want to have a look at all the 4-digit industries, all the most detailed information about the industries, we can just click on 4 digits, automatically update. Feel free to have a bit of a play around with the add and removes column button, so you can add in different columns that you're wanting to see in, and you can also read these particular industries based on what you want to have a look at as well. So I've clicked 2016 to 2021 change. Now obviously here we have the jobs that are predicted to be in 2021 and the difference with this between these. So we can start to see whether a particular industry is due to grow or decline. And that's all I was going to cover for the industry table. Hopefully it's fairly self-explanatory. But what we can do as well is, as I said before, we can jump around from one report to another, depending on what we want to see. So I've apparently selected computer programming activities. So say if I wanted a little bit more information around this, I can go to the jump to button at the top. Now there'll be quite a few different reports that you can jump to, but for the time being, I'm going to go to an industry overview, which again will just provide us with an overview, pulling out one particular industry. Now I can go straight into an industry overview report if I know exactly what industry I want to look at before I even get there, but I've just kind of shown you how you can jump from a table to an overview. Now we've got over 17,000 jobs, which is 317% above the national average, due to growth slightly less than the national average, but paying slightly more than the national average as well. We've got our reader industry, and again, we can change these regions to compare one against another if we want to. If I switch, I'm going to jump into just after this, so please bear with me. If as well about the industry, it looks at imports and exports. And at the bottom, we have our Equifax data, which again will give you those top 5 business names as well. You can jump to a business table, which will obviously give you all of the industries in that particular region. But again, if you don't have access to this, this is an additional data set. So get in contact with client services if you want a little bit more of a table here. Now, obviously, we're looking at one particular industry. So again, businesses that relate to computer programming. Now, what this table does in the middle is basically link that back to occupations. So if we're looking at computer programming, who is employed in the computer programming industry? Now, the top one, unsurprisingly, is programmers. So I'm going to jump to a staffing pattern report because I want more information about these occupations. So as you can see, it'll take us to over occupations with the levels and the hierarchy as the industries do. So you can see we've got a 4-digit SOC code, which is the most detailed occupation data, relevant ones at the top. So obviously the most relevant one being employed in the industry is programmers and software developers. But as you'll see, the nurse in the hospital that we were looking at earlier, you can see marketing and sales directors in here. We've got administration, we've got graphic designers, cover absolutely everybody related to that industry. It won't just be the programmers that sort of automatically come to mind. Again, using that hospital example, it'll have drivers, it'll have chefs, it'll have receptionists. So it will list absolutely everything. everybody to really. I hope that all makes sense. I'm probably going to leave it there for industries for now. So I'm going to jump back to our home page. Now, we started in an industry table here and we jumped to an industry overview. As I said, you can go straight into these reports here. So again, if you know that you want to have a look at what occupations make up a particular industry, you can jump straight into that report. Now I'm going to jump to occupations. So now that we've looked at the businesses, now we're going to start to dive into those occupations as well. And if I flip to occupations, you'll see that all of the occupation reports are pretty much the same as the industry reports. We had a look at an industry table, we have an occupation table, same with the overview, same with the by location report as well. So it shouldn't be anything too out of the ordinary. Now I'm going to jump to an occupation table. Again, just because there's just a couple slight differences with the occupation table, but you'll see that it's pretty much the same. And I'm going to run this report. Now, as I said before, the hierarchy works in the exact same way. So those SOC codes work in the exact zip codes. The categories are slightly different. So we're able to look at officials, skilled trade, process and plant machine operatives. So again, if I let's open up by particular occupations as well. So again, it should be very, very similar. And once you get the hand of these codes, they're really, really easy to understand. Now, the only slight difference between the occupation table and the industry table is we have a new column called annual openings. So what I'm going to do is order this to have a look at the most amount of growth. Now you'll see, again, these are the amount of jobs that there were in 2016, the amount of jobs that there were predicted to be in 2021. And obviously the difference between that. So because we've ordered growth from 2016 to 2020, we've got that figure as a percentage, but we also have the annual openings figure as well. Now the annual openings figure takes into account that particular growth or that particular decline, but also looks at death rates, it looks at retirement rates, it looks at the natural turnover of staff as well. So this is a bit of a better number if you're wanting to look at demand. If we take cleaners and domestics, you can see there's 20,000 jobs in 2016, 21,000 jobs, and that's obviously a difference of 566 jobs. So that's just looking at growth. Whereas this annual openings figure here might take into account retirement rates. So just as an example, if cleaners had quite a high number of people who were coming up to 65 or over 65, then it's likely that they'll be due to retire. So there's a higher demand for that particular occupation in the future. Again, in this report, we can add and remove columns just as we could with the other tables that we've had a look at. Again, to which bits of data you want to add in, whether that's wage information, education level, which looks at the average education level for the person that does that job. So if I click into that and just press select, you'll see the table will automatically update. And again, we can filter these tables as well. So if you want everybody with a level 3 or above, you've got the option to do that in the table as well. It's completely up to you as to how you want to play it around. That all makes sense. So what I'm going to do is do exactly the same as we did with the other table. I'm going to highlight programmers as our top one, top occupation, and I'm going to jump to an occupation overview. So as we've seen before, we've got a little bit of headline information. So nearly 16,000 jobs, 161% above the national average, due to grow slightly less than the national average, but paying slightly more than the national average as well. And again, we can jump in just to again have a look at sort of entry level salaries, as well as if you've been there a little bit longer. Looking at multiple local authorities, multiple regions, it basically breaks this down by each particular local authority. View, which is the next report that I'm going to jump to, so bear with me with that one. We have a little bit of demographics. So this is the number of people who have signed on to the Job Centre Plus, who have had their previous job as the one that we're looking at. Now, just as a bit of an insight, in a couple of weeks, we'll be updating this data to look at quarters of the year rather than each individual month. We've got inverse staffing pattern. Now, this is pretty much the same as the report that we saw earlier, except it's just the flip side of the coin. So now we're looking at one occupation, we're looking at programmers. This report is saying, well, what industries are programmers employed in? Again, we can jump to an inverse staffing pattern table that will give us a little bit more information, but we've just got the top 5 in here for the time being as well. Now, what I'm going to do is scroll the view table, and I'm going to jump into this in a little bit more detail. Now, you might not have access to the job posting analytics data yet, but feel free to get in touch with client services if you want to have a look at it. So I'm going to jump through to the job posting analytics. Now, we're still looking at programmers and software developers for this particular occupation. We can pick 18, which February, as the job posting analytics is updated monthly. Now, what we do with our job posting analytics is we work with our sister company, TextKernel, to scrape all of the job boards in the whole of the UK, and we basically pull out all of the interesting bits of data from those particular job postings. Now, if you're one company, you might post one job posting on 10, 20, 30 different job boards. So what our job is to do is to deduplicate that. So rather than 30 job postings, that would just count as one. And that's where this unique postings number comes in. So a unique posting, it'd just be the one postings rather than the 30, then it might appear on different job boards. Local authority, so again, you can start to see which local authority rise or a particular decline, or if it's particularly details, the company who have put the posting online, if they've included their name. Now, this might be the direct employer, it might be recruitment agencies, you might get a little mix of both. In that posting, so the top one being Reading, Basingstoke, top posted occupations. Now, what we've done is mapped each job posting to a SOC code, which is the codes that we were looking at earlier. Now, because we've gone through from an occupation overview, we've stuck with this particular occupation, but again, it can give you a complete list. And title. So we've kind of set this separately to the SOC codes to give you a little bit more information. Now, if we just had a look at programmers and software developers, which we're looking at the moment, you can title means that you can start to dive into this data a little bit more detail and find out what types of programmers and what types of software developers that people are after in your particular region. Now, obviously, this will change depending on the region that you're looking at. So London will be completely different to Manchester, which will be completely different to Cardiff, which again might be completely different Reading. This is completely different. So again, using programmers as a really good example, you might find that JavaScript is more popular, a more popular skill in demand in London compared to maybe down the road in Reading. We've also so we've split this off exactly how you want. Depending on what you from the direct employer, if you on search. So again, we've got a little bit more information on knowledge base. If you click in learn more, you can see how our occupation journey that we've taken so far. So we started at an occupation table and we jumped to an occupation overview at the top here. So as I said, these are our most popular reports and probably the ones that you'll use the most. But what we've done is jumped from an occupation overview to a job postings report just down here. Now you can go straight into job postings if you want. Again, we've got a table, we've got it by location. There's a few different reports in here. This first one probably being the most popular and the one that's used the most. So the one that I would definitely recommend starting with. But again, as you've seen, it's really easy to be able to jump around from one report to another. Now, I'll leave job postings for now. We've had a look at the industries, we've had a look at the occupations, we've just had a very quick look at the job postings overview. So finally, what I'm going to touch on at the bottom is the curriculum planner. Now, the curriculum planner is different for each organisation. What we do is basically, if you want to give in your ILR data, you can activate the curriculum planner. But basically, we take your completion numbers and map those through to sector subject areas or basically course areas. Now, there's only 2 reports in here, so I'm going to start by having a look at a curriculum table. Again, you can limit by a particular course area if you know you just want to have a look at health and social care related course areas, but for the time being, I'm just going to click on all available, again, for my particular region. Now, this will be, as I said, this data will be unique to your region. So if I have my imaginary college, these completion numbers in this box here, the curriculum planner automatically turned on, you see that this is different for you. Again, if you do want more information about adding this in, it's automatically part of your subscription, so it's free. Get in touch with client services and we can get that data requested for you to pop that into your system. So if we're social care here, see that we've got this by the course area code, and we're looking at health and social care related course area. And I, in my imaginary college, have 913 completions. Again, this will be different for your particular college. But what I do definitely have in my system, in my region, is 2,233 annual openings in these local authorities, which we were looking at earlier. I'll keep that as my region. Now, if you remember earlier, these annual openings is that figure that looks at demand. So this is looking at retirement rates, this is looking at death rates, this is looking at the natural turnover of staff. So this, again, this is looking annually for each particular year. So this suggests that there might be measures to increase my course provisions because the demand is out there as well. We've got a little bit of headline information again down here, but for the time being, I've just focused on these 2. Again, you can select between SSA2 level and course area, depending on which parts you want to have a look at. But again, feel free to have a bit of a play around with the table to be able to look at those course areas. Now, the same as all the other reports in Analyst, if I want a little bit more detail, so I'll stick with health and social care, I can just highlight that as yellow and go to the top and jump to a course area snapshot, which is basically just reports, but obviously now we're looking at particular course areas. Do all the hard work for you. So all you have to do is provide us with a spreadsheet that has the AIMS code, the course title, and the number of completions on there. We take all that information and basically map those courses to careers that they relate to. So here, occupations that we have mapped through to health and social care. So the top one being care workers, nurses, nursing auxiliaries and assistants. And I can jump through to an occupation table if I do just want to have a look at these particular occupations. And again, we've got a little headline information at the top here. I have in my imaginary college. So the top one being the Pearson's BTEC Level 3 in health and social care. And again, it'll detail each individual course and the number of completions. And again, we've got our completions figure here and the number of annual openings here. So it suggests that there might be a little bit more demand than the market. Bottom, we've got our inverse staffing pattern. So we are obviously looking at a particular course area. So we're looking at health and social care. And then what we've done is map that through to occupations. Now, what this report does is basically map all of those occupations and saying, well, where are they employed? So the top one is hospital activities. So the most people who go into health and social care will probably go into an occupation that is probably employed by hospital activities. So again, you can get a little bit more information about each individual industry if you go in and click on this blue writing. Planner, and that's all I was going to touch on for today. We're currently working through updates around the curriculum planner, around innovation. So if you do have any feedback about any parts of Analyst, again, feel free to get in touch. So as I said, that was all I was planning on going over in Analyst today. Hopefully that all makes sense, and I haven't left you asking more questions, and hopefully I've answered. If you have any questions, feel free to just type them in now. And again, I'm more than happy to hopefully answer your questions and see if there's anything else I can do. If not, please feel free to get in contact with Client Services. We are here to help, and I promise you, you're not an inconvenience. So honestly, do get in touch. And also, very, very last thing before I go. On our website, you'll see that there's a link at the top here, which has more information about our conference on the 15th of May in Birmingham. So again, feel free to jump in and have a little look and see what we've got planned for our conference. Now, I'm going to hang around for a little bit at the end, so if anyone does have any questions, feel free to just type them in now, and again, ask any questions. But if that's it, then please have a good day, have a lovely weekend, and feel free to get in contact if there's anything else we can do. Thank you. Hello, Jason. I've just seen your question. Can you search by a specific employer? So it depends which report you're wanting to have a look at in Analyst. So if I jump back to my Analyst screen, in the job postings, you can. That'll basically bring up the job postings that that particular employer has put online. Currently, you can't in the structural data. But if you know the SIC code, so the classification that that employer falls under, then again, you can search that in Analyst. If you have any specific examples that you wanted to look through, again, I'm happy to send you a report as a bit of an example that might be able to help. Hopefully that's answered your question, but if it hasn't, just let me know.